Thanks for tuning in to the Mission Matters podcast, where we feature successful, mission-driven leaders committed to creating a positive change in the world. Our mission with this channel is to inspire other leaders by providing industry insights, new ideas, and inspiring stories from the pros.
Well, hello. Hi, this is Paul Fife here, host of this show where I interview mission-focused organizations leading from the heart and making a difference in our communities. Today's episode is sponsored by our very own Paul Gregory Media. It's a marketing agency in the Midwest, focusing and devoting their work to those very same mission-based organizations, who also happen to be a B Corp or a certified B Corp. There's only a few thousand in the world. To learn more about what a B Corp is and some of the services that Paul Gregory Media does, visit paulgregorymedia.com. Very excited today. Joining me is Sarah Grycko-Oprzedek. She is the president and CEO of United Way of Will County. And that organization fights for the self-sufficiency, health, safety, and education of every person in Will County. A lofty goal indeed. Thanks for being here, Sarah.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here, Paul.
I'm excited about today's episode because we're going to talk about a few things that leaders face in nonprofits and even mission-based organizations. But first, before we get into that, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Happy to. So my career started way back when in human resources. So in human resources, especially today, there's a lot of intersect and a lot of connectivity between employee relations, community relations, fundraising, and of course, the term everybody knows now is corporate social responsibility. So when I was young, actually, I was just graduating from high school and I found out about an opportunity at a local chemical manufacturing company called Ecolab. And I had found out that they were looking for a temporary position in the human resources department. So I applied for that position, which was supposed to be just 3 months for the summer leading up to my freshman year at Lewis University. And after the summer, I was extended for first semester and then extended to second semester. And so after a few extensions, we came to an agreement that I would be able to stay there through the duration of my degree in psychology and social work. And I loved it. So I had the employee relations side, but then I started getting more involved in the community relations. So that corporate social responsibility that we know now. And when I was at Ecolab, a lot of companies, tried and true, their first, introduction to the community and fundraising was through, the traditional workplace campaigns of the United Way. So that became my responsibility. And I started to get really involved with United Way of Will County. I got responsibility and ran the workplace campaign. So we were a 24/7 operation. We had union employees, non-exempt, exempt. And the first year I ran the campaign there, we saw a 33% increase in donations. And then I started to get more involved. So I volunteered to be an account executive for United Way. I started attending some of their events. And not too long after that, my contact, who actually got me into this field and where I am now, Tina Postel, we met for lunch talking about the campaign and said, we've got an open position for community relations at United Way, and I think you'd be a great fit. Do you ever think about a career change? And up until that point, I hadn't. And the more I thought about it, and I realized, you know what? I like what United Way does. I have fun when I'm volunteering for United Way. Maybe this is a calling. Maybe this is time for a change and a shift. So I jumped in, both feet first, and the rest was history. So that was in 2006. And I've worked my way up. I started as a community relations manager and then was promoted to senior community relations manager, development director, vice president of operations and development, and most recently in January was named president and CEO. And I'm coming up on my 17th anniversary.
This October, right?
This October, yeah.
So, and we're recording this in September. So less than a month away. That's quite a journey from 2006. I'm trying to think where the heck I was in 2006. I think I just started Paul Gregory Media.
Yeah.
So maybe I missed it. You said you were at Lewis University. You had a psychology. You were going for your psychology degree and something else too.
Social work.
Social work. All right. And then, so what was your trajectory? What was your ideal job before this shift into United Way?
So it was interesting. Originally, I was going to school. I wanted to be a high school guidance counselor.
Okay.
So, and when I was working in HR, I loved it. And then when I saw that intersect of employee relations and community relations, I'm like, oh, well, maybe I won't be a high school guidance counselor. And then since I had the lived experience and the work experience, I stayed within the HR field.
So something tells me that you had a great experience with a high school counselor at some point.
Actually, quite the opposite.
Oh.
Yes.
So you learned what not to be as a guidance counselor and set
not to be. Yes.
Wanted to set that straight. I have I've heard of similar experiences of people pursuing jobs because they've been taught how things shouldn't be done.
Yeah. And it was one of those. Full disclosure, I was a punk rock kid. So I had good grades. I did really well in school, but I liked punk rock music and it looked like I liked punk rock music. So you had looked the look, right? I looked the look, yes. And
nice.
there was, it came down to I felt that I was never listened to about, what my aspirations were. And actually, my guidance counselor in high school told me when I went to talk about college options, the first response was, do you think you're college material? Maybe you should just get a job.
We don't want to mention high schools either. But a punk rock person that looks like a punk rocker comes and says, first of all, I don't know when you had interest in psychology or social work, but I got to imagine it happened before your first day of college, right? And these are things that if you were encouraged, you would have probably pursued earlier. And a guidance counselor hearing that, your interests in psychology or your interest in social work, I mean, that's kind of unexpected from a punk rocker. And you would think you would encourage that and say, wow, okay, well, your grades support it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
I'm getting angry now at this guidance counselor. who I don't know.
But you know what? Everything happens for a reason. So, yes, but I did take there was a psychology class actually offered in my high school. So there were a lot of great aspects about where I went to high school.
Yeah.
It's just that one guidance counselor, just that one.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't look like they've hindered you in any way. And here it is 17 years later, and you're now president and CEO of United Way in Will County. So let's jump ahead to where you are now.
Okay.
As a leader, you're faced with challenges and potential solutions every day. And it seems like it's a landmine at times. And we were talking before the show about this idea of this modern day David and Goliath. It's a new thing that's popped up in the nonprofit world that I think nobody really knows about because it just happened recently. So maybe you could be the first one to break this story and let our listeners know what the heck is going on with this.
Yes. So here in Will County, there is an organization. It's a church in Joliet, and they found out through a letter that came in that they were being sued for clawback donations from the SEC. So what happened in this case was the church, and there were two other organizations. So there were three actual nonprofits that were affected locally. But the church has the largest amount that is being sought for to be recouped. And what happened was they had a donor that was a member of the church, very active, and the family was involved and made some very generous major gifts to the church over a 10-year period. Well, what has come to be in recent times is that there was some fraudulent activity on behalf of that donor. So what happened is because of that fraudulent activity, during the 10-year period of when this fraudulent activity took place that was not known, those donations were made to organizations and those dollars were put to use. So what's happening now is the SEC is now trying to recoup those donations that were made. So this has nothing to do with the organization. So it's not a direct reflection of them. They have done nothing wrong, but they are the ones that, because donations were made to them, those donations were made as a result of fraudulent activity. So the Illinois legislation clawbacks allow those donations to be recouped. Now, these donations date back to 2012. So I don't know of any nonprofit, when those donations come in and they're supporting our mission, supporting the good work, and moving our organizations and our community forward, we don't keep our profits. We invest those profits back into the community.
Over a 10-year period, those profits are long, or those donations are long gone. They've been invested back into the community.
Yes, they are long gone. So Illinois legislation does not have a statute of limitations for these clawback donations. So really, any nonprofit could be at risk depending upon if there was a donor who had, misdeeds or fraudulent activity and made donations. Those donations could be clawed back. So and that's what we're seeing here in Joliet right now.
The onus upon to mitigate the risk, the onus is now on the nonprofit. So when they get a donation and it's no longer happily accepted, now you got to, who has the resources to vet a donor to the point of, is this a Ponzi scheme? Like, the whole point of being a Ponzi scheme is to fly under the radar and be very secretive about it, right? So you're not found out as long as possible. So what resources is a nonprofit going to have to vet that donor?
Well, and then it makes for a pretty awkward conversation too with the donor. Have you received these funds as a result of any type of fraudulent activity or a crime? It's
going to be like the airport and checking your suitcase. Have you had any? Was this left unattended at any time? Where were these funds obtained? Oh my gosh! So, like, if I'm a thief, okay, and I steal money from person one and give it to a nonprofit. I'm like Robin Hood, right? I steal from this person, give it to a nonprofit, steal from this person, give it to a nonprofit. As long as I'm not caught, or whether I'm caught or not, I guess doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. If it's found out that I had fraudulent activity, the nonprofit now has to give all that money back. Yes. And there is no statute of limitations. So if I've been doing this and getting away with it for 10 years,
that nonprofit is subject to, for those 10 years of donation.
Is that crazy?
It is, yes. So there are other states where they do have a time frame. Minnesota, Florida, and there's another one that escapes me, but they've got a 2-year time frame where those donations, could be taken back. But the church here, it's Messiah Lutheran Church. They are $487,000 that they need to come up with by November 15th. So this is, again, worst case scenario. But again, they never thought that this would happen to them, but are using this as and have asked for our assistance at United Way. How can we get this message out here that nonprofits in Illinois are at risk for this and could be subject to it as well?
Get awareness out there. That's the number one takeaway here. And we got to figure out some advocacy avenues as well with legislation. Absolutely.
If there's a way where we can change that legislation and put a time frame on it, because this could potentially decimate that organization and then any nonprofit. I mean, to go back 10 years worth of donations.
And this church that's got this $450 or whatever it is, $1,000 bounty over its head. Is this a new church, or is this a long established church?
Long established church. Yes. Well over 100 years old.
Great. And this could really put them under.
No, absolutely could. Yeah. So if they don't come up with the funds, so they did come up with 187,000. So 300 is the number they need to have additional by November 15th. And if they don't, they are subject to have the accounts frozen, and their land and property could be seized and sold off.
So it's funny how the state of Illinois can pick a point in the chain of command for that dollar. So you have the thief, right, who donated to an organization, that's 0.2. And then that organization, let's say they're a food bank and they purchased food from the Northern Illinois Food Bank, that's 3. Then the Northern Illinois Food Bank purchased food from their sponsors, or not their sponsors, their suppliers, right, and farmers and things like that. And then that's 0.4. And then who knows where that dollar goes after that, but it goes to many other places after that. But they pick spot 2. And by that time, if they have anything more than a 1-year look back, that dollar is now at 0.5 or 6 or 7 down the chain.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. And even for the case with United Way. So we had a conversation, with one of our greatest avenues for community impact is we're able to make those sizable community impact grants within Will County. So we receive donations and then we re-grant donations out into the community as well. So it doesn't end with us. We're also making those investments into community partners within Will County. So it keeps going. But yeah, it's that point in time.
Well, it's great that you're bringing awareness to this. I look forward to hearing more about it. And I think we all should be blasting that on social media. We should all be writing our representatives as well and figuring out what can be done as far as at least putting a time for, that's a good start, right? Putting a time frame on this, a statute of limitations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nonprofits, our missions are to essentially do good, right? We want to support the people of our community. We want to support those that have a need. And this clawback, without having that statute of limitations and that time frame, it could potentially decimate the nonprofit sector, really, because if a nonprofit closes as a result, those needs don't just automatically go away. That need is still in the community. So how are those additional resources and how are we going to continue to meet those needs if those nonprofits are no longer in existence? Yep.
So that's a good start with the statute of limitations. I mean, even Medicaid only has a 5-year look back, right?
Yeah.
And that's, well, all right. That's one. We had a few things to talk about today as far as challenges that nonprofit leaders face. And that's a new one that everybody should be aware of. Let's talk about the employment market because that's kind of volatile these days as well.
So we hear a lot, especially within our community. So we've got our unemployment rate is low, but we also need to look at, and we hear about a lot of new companies coming in and there are jobs that are available. But when it comes to nonprofit, the nonprofit community has really taken a hit when it comes to staffing and resources. Nonprofits, there's only so much that is available for hourly wages and salaries. So when the employment industry really started to boom here in Will County, we had a lot of nonprofits that saw their staffing increase or need for staffing increase exponentially because they no longer could retain and keep their staff because their staff was able to go obtain employment, making more per hour at other positions due to industry growth within Will County. And we're continuing to see that. And wages are actually on the rise. And we do have a really, when we look at the median income for Will County, we have a solid median income. However, when it comes to nonprofits, it's not keeping up. So the nonprofit sector is really, unfortunately, turnover happens. And when turnover happens and you've got staff leaving for increased, hourly rate or increased salary, either within another nonprofit or leaving the nonprofit sector altogether, it creates that trickle down, need for staffing within the organization, because you lose a critical position and now you have to parcel out what are the critical functions that we need, right now. You have to triage, is there an event coming up?
Right.
What's the next item, with a pending deadline? So where do we need to have existing staff take on additional roles, bring in some, board members to help support those roles, if able, to keep the organization moving. So staffing for nonprofits, and a lot of times it's that onus falls on the executive director or the president and CEO. Having a dedicated HR person to lead that process doesn't really happen in nonprofits.
No.
So then you've got that top leadership position taking on additional roles to, because it's critical, you need those positions filled.
Taking time away from
it is. It's
programming
that 22. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So what is do we have any numbers on the average attrition rate for, say, a production level person or program level person?
Attrition rate, I don't have that off the top of my hand, but I know when we do look within the nonprofit, we see it. So when we work with our partners, so there are 37 organizations that we actively partner with year round, and we see it on the rosters. So we know that, all right, this organization has a new program person working on the application. There's a new development person, or there's a new grant writer. So we see that these names change.
Right.
And then, relationships that we've had, we get bounce backs like, oh, okay, this person's no longer here now.
Yeah. Well, it's happened in a couple of industries. One I can think of right away is the publishing industry, like the newspapers. We have a PR team, and it used to be the same people for the same 20 years. And then in the last 10, it's almost changed every year.
Yeah.
And we've been working with nonprofits for 17 years, and we have a stable of about 200 over the past 17 years that we've worked with. So we've seen, and so my ballpark estimate is about 2 years for a production level, not executive.
Okay.
It's what we've seen. And we've seen where maybe 17 years ago or 15 years ago, they would stick it out for 2 years before they decided if it was a right fit and then look for a better opportunity. Now what we've seen is 6 months to a year tops if it isn't a right fit, that they're out of there now, which may be a good thing, but still you put up that's about how long it takes to onboard somebody.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Because as soon as you get that position filled, there is that, onboarding and orientation, getting them acclimated to not just your organization, but your internal processes and SOPs and policies, and getting them, up to speed. So it definitely
has a real cost.
It does. Yeah. And it takes a toll on the organization and the staffing. And we've talked with some other leaders within the community about, how can we as nonprofits position ourselves better to retain the existing staff we have, and there's only so much that we can do. So I find it interesting when we hear that there's, the return to work, right? So more companies are now, instituting like, okay, we're going to, eliminate or reduce the amount of, work from home opportunities. We need people coming back into the office more.
Right.
But that was one of the recommendations of how are we able to retain those key staff members is one priority is, hybrid modality, offer, remote positions as long as the work is getting done. What type of new benefits can we offer? One was brought up, pet insurance. Everyone loves their friends.
That's very popular.
So offering, enhancements to an existing benefit package, comp time, flex time. But again, there's only so much flexibility within the organization to where if you're already, short staffed, how are you going to?
But you do have a hard ceiling in terms of salary, right? Yes. Salary and benefits, right? Mm-hmm. So if there's a financial ceiling there, and then that's got to increase every year or two as well. The question then is, what other benefits and perks can you offer that make people want to reconsider and stay?
Mm-hmm.
That they can't maybe get so easily someplace else. And you mentioned a few of them. Flex time is always good. It doesn't have to be 9 to 5, but flex time also means you may have to work an event on the weekend, or
Absolutely.
you may have to stuff goodie bags at night before the event or something like that. So that's flex time.
Mhm.
There's I like the idea of pet insurance. We have pet insurance, and we love
Very
it.
nice.
Take advantage of that. And yeah, I haven't even thought of that. And of course, vision, dental, those kinds of things. I know PTO is another, right? Again, not a great option if you're short staffed, but what we did is about a year ago implemented unlimited PTO, and there's rules around that.
Okay.
You can't just take off if there's nobody to cover. If you have a deadline, you can't. You have to make sure as long as your work is done, then you want to take a mental health day for no reason at all, you can do that. So it's based on work, not about the number of hours you put in a given week, but is all of your work done?
Exactly. And actually, I've seen other larger nonprofits start implementing that as well.
Yeah.
To where it's, and
Yep.
it brings, it lends to that conversation of, work-life balance, right? To where,
yeah,
trying to find that work-life balance, not just in the nonprofit industry, but I think really in any industry, the work doesn't stop for us. It never does.
Yeah. So that's a great segue into our third topic, which is just that. I've never met an executive director who had less than 40 balls in the air juggling and trying to keep them all up. There's so many things to do to keep the mission just propelling forward. And there's that notion of like, they're so busy. They're working 50 and 60 hours a week. And where are they able to find that balance? I think the excuse they make to themselves a lot is that this is important, mission-driven work. It's my life. And somehow it sort of gets integrated and mixed in. Like this is what I do.
It trickles down. It's that domino effect. If I don't take care of this now, who is it really going to impact in the long run? So is it going to affect a client or somebody in need, or prolong or delay services because this didn't get taken care of right away, or I didn't address this right away? And then we also look at it, from a nonprofit, who are our customers? We have a lot of customers. It's not just, the clients and those who are in need, but our donors are also our customers. So we have to make sure we're attending to our donors and we're meeting their needs as well. And then in our case, our donors are not just individuals, but there's also
corporate sponsors.
Yes.
So you have a lot of constituents to answer to, right? You have your beneficiaries, you have your corporate sponsors, you have your donors. And I'm sure you also have city council, probably, right?
Absolutely. So when we extend beyond that definition of partnership, so it's what other partners and where are we also active within the community. So if we commit to a task force, or we commit to, taking on and leading an initiative for the community, we have to make sure that we are reaching out to and bringing in different key, governmental bodies as a part of that partnership. So then that we're answering, to those task forces and, those departments and individuals as well.
So a lot of people to answer for, or to, I should say, and that kind of feeds into, I guess, let me ask you this. And this is maybe a question to the listeners too. When was the last time you took a day off and did not check your email?
Good question.
Yeah, it's probably few and far between. Maybe Sunday, right? But I think the more you don't check your email, the more anxious executive directors tend to get.
Well, yeah. I mean, so you can take a day off, you can schedule that day off or schedule that vacation time. But then, again, there's that catch-22 to where, well, if I get back to this, respond to this email, or I return this phone call now, that leads to another email, and then to another phone call, and then to another. And then next thing you know, you've either, spent half your day that you were taking off for yourself working, or if you do have the ability and you are able to completely disconnect, which those days are coveted, I will tell you, but they're hard pressed, to come by, because that work doesn't go away. It's still sitting there.
Right.
So when you come
Piling
back,
up.
then it's,
How big of a pile do you want when you come back?
Exactly. Yeah.
I saw a great commercial the other day that there was this guy rowing a boat down a beautiful river, and it had work-life balance on it. And then it sort of scratched out. It's, the heck with that. It's work-life unbalance. How about that? How about we spend more time on life and less time?
Yes. I love that. Yes.
So I thought that was
kind of a misnomer, it's trying to, find that balance. And, there's lots of blogs and lots of information where, here's some tips, here's what I do. I wake up at 4 a.m. to, have my time in the morning. But then again, it's, finding that balance. And then for me, I've got young kids at home still. So I've got a 15-year-old, and then my son just turned 10. So I'm still,
another full-time job.
Yeah, we've got, getting out of the house in the morning, make sure I can get to both schools on time, for drop off, and then the activities in the afternoon, activities on the weekend. It's,
that's I am just remembering going through that. My kids are older now; they're in their mid-20s, but the morning routine it's
down to the minute.
Yes, it's highly coordinated. It's like a choreographed family event.
It's 7:22. This is the 3-minute warning.
Right. So work-life balance. Yeah, there's a lot of tips and tricks out there. We should bring back the 32-hour work week. Fridays off. Do it like Norway.
You know what? I would love to have a 32-hour week.
You would just have to tell the beneficiaries.
I have a 40-hour week.
Yeah, you just have to tell the people who need your services that, hey, Fridays are off.
Yeah,
that's just not going to work.
Yeah, it's the need is there, and any nonprofit will tell you that. So we don't do this for ourselves. We do this because we know there's a need, and we know what we're doing is making a difference. We know that what we do, whether we're sitting at the office working on, a business plan for an initiative or a new partnership program, or when we're out at a networking event meeting, new donors or potential donors or new partners. At the end of the day, it's what impact are we making in the community? And that's what we're all striving to do. And that's what makes that balance hard. It really is, because it's a love, right? It's a calling. So.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And I know the beneficiaries of your services are very, very appreciative of the things that you do every day for them in that entire county and in the area surrounding it. So what do you do to recharge, Sarah? Any favorite conferences or?
So in terms of conferences, I have to, give it up to the United Way Network. So being a local United Way, we have, and I don't want to say endless, but we have a lot of opportunities to engage, with our network. Most recently, I was part of the NELO training, which was New Executive Leadership Onboarding. So I was able to connect with other leaders, within the United Way network. And now we've got, additional coaching classes, and we've made those connections where we've got we're building our base of peers where we can bounce an idea off of, or heck, if you need somebody to vent to, just for a minute, you've got a peer who's been there, who's walked that path, and then you've got that confidant that you can talk to. The Great Rivers training, United in Purpose. So we've got a lot of opportunities to learn what's working, what United Ways are, not just scaling their impact, but scaling, their partnerships in the community. really for an evolving United Way, because our work has evolved over the years. It's not just about running a traditional workplace campaign and, what's that end goal we're trying, number we're trying to achieve. It's what does our community need? What issues are facing, the residents of our community, and what can we do about it? Who can we bring to the table? And how can we go from identifying an issue to finding a solution?
Right. And that's the national conference, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So everybody knows United Way is national, and then they're in every state, I think, right?
Yeah.
All 50. Mm-hmm. And then in Illinois, I think I don't even know how many counties are in Illinois, but do you know how many United Ways are in Illinois?
I don't know how many different United Ways.
Dozens,
one thing
right?
that we're seeing, no, not thousands.
No, dozens.
No, dozens. Absolutely. Yes. Dozens. And some United Ways cover multiple counties as well.
Yeah.
So I want to say, our friends down in at the Heart of Illinois United Way, they're based in Peoria, but they're covering 6 counties.
Oh, wow.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, more rural, I guess, out there, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I know.
And we've seen some consolidations even here. So there used to be, several different, even within, northern Illinois. So, and now, merging together, coming together, for greater impact to support our communities.
Wow. Well, this has been a riveting conversation. We talked about the David versus Goliath and this Ponzi scheme, and or doesn't always have to be a Ponzi scheme, but anything that's not legit in terms of the donation from the donor side is now on the onus of the nonprofit. A terrible, terrible legislation, in my opinion, based on what I know. But I'm glad we brought awareness to that, and then maybe we can start on some advocacy in the coming months. The employment market, which everybody knows, it's hard. Attrition rates are high, even though unemployment is low, and that costs employers tens of thousands of dollars for onboarding. And then there's the triage and disbursement of duties when that person leaves. And that's never a fun exercise. I know we go through that every couple of years ourselves. And then that work-life balance, where there's a lot. If you're an executive director listening to this, or president of a mission-based organization, I know you work many, many hours and trying to find that work-life balance. And I guess it depends on what's important to you, right? Mm-hmm. Family is definitely important, should be the most important. The mission of what you do, and having that vehicle, which is your job, be that vehicle in which you can do what you're fulfilled to do, I think is also important. But where's that balance that makes the most sense for you? Well, Sarah, great conversation. I think our listeners will learn a lot today. And anything you want to plug on the way out? How can we get in touch with your site?
No, absolutely. So you can find us on the web and on social channels, uwwill.org, and our handles are uwwill as well. So you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And we've got a lot of work to do. So we've got a lot of needs in our community, and we're excited about where we're going for United Way. We've got a new program that is getting ready to launch. Literally within the next month, we'll be hosting our first training. So we're real excited about that. But no, we just appreciate the opportunity, and we're always looking for new partners and how we can support the fantastic people here in Will County.
Great. And there's ways, I'm sure, to donate online, to volunteer. Yes. You guys have quite a few programs going on just within the county that I know of. And so there's a lot of donations and volunteers needed for those as well. So definitely check out uwwill.org, right?
Yes, absolutely. We've got one of our family-friendly volunteer events coming up in December, Spirit of Giving. So we're excited about that. It's the holiday season. So as kids are building, holiday wish lists. We bring it back to the act of giving to others. So we invite families to come out, and we do acts of kindness that will support some nonprofit needs within our community. So it's a great way to get the whole family involved in that spirit of giving to help others who are less fortunate over the holidays.
Nice. And if you happen to be watching this in February or March, just watch it again in October or November.
Absolutely, yes.
Yes. Well, thanks again, Sarah. I really appreciate your time.
No, thank you, Paul. Appreciate the opportunity.
Until next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Mission Matters podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.